Hello, everyone. So welcome to tonight's instruction before class tomorrow. So we're continuing on our unit of the Introduction to History, and today we're going to really be talking about primary and secondary sources. So as we've heard in the weeks leading up to this, that historians use research, and documents are written to analyze historical events, and that this goes forward with that. So we're going to get into tonight's agenda, which is first, I want to put a disclaimer out there. So on the website tonight and in this PowerPoint, I have videos. So what I want you to do is when we get to those videos, just go on, scroll down on this website and go watch them at the point that they are. They're supposed to help you understand the concepts a little bit easier. So like the first one is Star Wars: The Force Awakens. So I like this video because it kind of introduces the topics through Star Wars, a really popular thing that I know a lot of you guys like. And then we got definitions of primary and secondary sources. So that's where we're really going to introduce the concepts, and I'm going to try to help you guys for class tomorrow. And then we have another video, primary versus secondary song, which should really punch in those concepts. So hopefully you'll get them for tomorrow. And then we're going to get into an example, which we're going to use the Declaration of Independence to show both a primary and a secondary source having to do with that document. So let's continue. So this is the video. So right now I want you to pause and go watch it down below, so it can introduce the topic in kind of a fun way. And so now we're going to look at the two sides. So you might be asking, what is a primary source and what is a secondary source? So the easiest way to think about it is a primary source is a first-hand account. So the easiest way to think about this is your Instagram feed is a primary source, because you're experiencing everything in that Instagram, and you're the only person that can say definitively what everything means. Whereas then in a secondary source, it summarizes that. Or a historian might go in and argue what you were thinking in your Instagram. And that all leads into what a secondary source is, which is a second-hand account. So it'd be like if you're playing the game of telephone. You're the first person whispering into someone's ear. And then the second person then whispers a new thing. But they might be a little bit different. But that's the secondary source. So primary sources always have a direct connection to the ideas or the concepts. So it's the direct knowledge. Whereas the secondary source is a summary, it's a description. It provides information, but it's not as reliable. It doesn't come from the actual thing, but it might build on multiple primary sources to create one document. So examples of some primary sources. So the first one is texts of laws or other original documents. So this could be the US Constitution, which is the easiest to think about for us, or like the Magna Carta would be another good example, or really any other original documents. The Declaration of Independence would be one, and any other document kind of like that. And then any newspaper report by any reporter who witnessed it. So just any report in a newspaper is not a primary source. They have to be kind of reporting on the news. So a lot of times reporters will go back in time and report on, like, say 9/11 on 9/11 day, even though they might have not even been alive for then. That would be a secondary source. But if they had lived through 9/11, it's still a primary source because they have direct knowledge. So speeches, diaries, letters, interviews, those are all primary sources. Any original research, so any data set or surveys that they take, or census data, that's another one, can be original research. And any photographs, videos, or audios are also primary sources. So your entire camera roll is all primary sources. But then again, if somebody went in and looked at your camera roll and tried to make an argument about it, that's a secondary source. So some examples of secondary sources. The easiest one to think about is a textbook over here. So it's a compilation of a lot of information and uses primary sources to summarize a given event. So a good event to think about this is, I would say, let's go with the Dodgers. So the Dodgers made the World Series for the first time since 1988 in 2017. And this was a big deal for Southern California because the Dodgers are a historic franchise with Jackie Robinson. Sandy Koufax is a great another example, but so them making the World Series is a huge deal. But now with the Astros cheating scandal, that whole event isn't totally seen in a different light. And so people with the original primary source probably reported that the Dodgers are losers, that they aren't clutch, that they can't win. But now the narrative has changed as, whoa, the Astros were cheating. So maybe we should give the Dodgers a break. And so what somebody might do to build a secondary source is take all those original primary sources with primary sources of the Astros and combine them, making a secondary source. So that's an easy way to think about it. Think of it as a compilation. So for you guys with YouTube, so if you're watching people play, what's a big game right now? Among Us or Fall Boys or any of those kind of games, and you're watching compilations on YouTube, so those would all be secondary sources, whereas the original Twitch streamer is the primary source. And so here's another video that I think you guys should watch that I think go down and you'll watch this one. It's a good song that can help you remember the lyrics and can help show the concepts. So now let's get into the Declaration of Independence. So I put in the beginning of the Declaration of Independence here, which is written right at the top, which is basically saying that America's splitting from Britain. We're saying goodbye. The unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America, when in the course of human events it became necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have been connected with them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which they impel to them the separation. So that's the beginning of the Declaration of Independence. This is a primary source. This is directly from Thomas Jefferson, and here are all the signatures down here of all the people who agreed with this document, who thought they needed to leave. So this is the definition of a primary source. It's an original law document. Now let's get into a secondary source, which comes from a history textbook. The Declaration of Independence said that King George III, who acted in every way the part of a tyrant, was not fit to be the ruler of free people. The signers declared that the new state that they represented had the right to wage war against the crown, continue to trade as they liked, and set up their own laws. The new government would be by the people and for the people, different from anything modern history had seen. So as you can see, this isn't actually about the document. So let's go back. Nowhere in even the language used is way different between the primary and secondary source. Just look at some of the words: political bands, equal station, stuff like that. That's not used in the secondary source. Secondary source is more fit to our kind of England and more summarizes what the point of the Declaration of Independence was about and summarizes why it exists. So I hope this has been a helpful introduction to the ideas of primary and secondary sources. Tomorrow in class we will continue to build upon these ideas, and I have 3 more examples that we'll go through as a class to figure it out, and hopefully they'll help you really understand these comments, but come prepared with at least one question for tomorrow, or maybe one example of what you think a primary or secondary source is. I want you guys to start thinking about these ideas, and I'm excited to hear what you guys have to say. All right, thank you.